Thank you very much. And I'm happy to be here this evening. And I was just telling Katie, I want to start by asking a question that I have a job offer for somebody in Africa. The money is around $13,000 a month. You give you a house, a car, and to stay there for 5 years. One in South Africa, one in Uganda. Anybody interested? Can you give me the form, please? Anybody interested? Yeah, I'm sorry. Please give me the form. Just anybody else? Oh, please be bold. Don't worry. Just please give me one of the forms, please. Anybody else? It's a good job. Okay. Good. Thank you. Before you get the job offer, you have to first of all pay a $100 fee, and then you have to fill a form, and then you come to our office. So maybe you can fill the form with your name and everything and come to my office. Is that okay? Is that okay? Yeah. You see, anybody can be trafficked. Anybody can be trafficked. I gave you a very nice offer. You accepted it. And then you join the process of being trafficked. Human trafficking can happen anywhere, anytime, and to anybody. It doesn't matter your qualification. What I just did can be a beginning of trafficking process for any one of us. That is why we always say that look beyond the surface. Don't just jump to an offer. Take your time, look at it, listen to it properly, examine what they are offering you before you make a move. Somebody can use the same situation and move you from here to Africa, to any continent, and by the time you realize your document has been seized, and they begin to exploit you. And once you find yourself to be there, you have no way coming back. That's how I want to begin my presentation today. I wanted to watch a small documentary called Right to be Free. And after the documentary, I'll just speak a bit, and then we can go into questions and answers, and you can ask questions, and I can explain more to you. I started this work in 2002, when a group of fishermen along the Volta Lake in Ghana, I'll show you the Ghana map, were using children with fishing on the lake. And we went there to find out what they were doing with them, and realized that these children were sold by their parents to these fishermen for $20, $50 to work for these people for 2 years, 3 years. And that's how we began this whole program. So I'll just
Ghana is located in West Africa and is slightly smaller than the state of Oregon. Lake Volta, located in eastern Ghana, is the world's largest man-made lake. It was formed when a dam was built to provide electricity to parts of the country. Unfortunately, Lake Volta is also where trafficked children or child laborers work in the hazardous fishing trade. Eric Piazza is the founder of the nonprofit Right to be Free. He researches the child laborers and plans the rescue missions. Here in his office, he shows us where the rescue mission will take place. Eric explains that the child laborers in Keti Krachi are trafficked from parts of the Central Region, Greater Accra, the Volta region, and some of them as far as the Western region. All along the coastline, fishermen work. However, during the off-season, they migrate north to Lake Volta, and they take children with them to help them work. When the children are rescued, they are taken to the rehabilitation center in Accra, which is the capital of Ghana. We left Accra early in the morning for the 9-hour drive to Keti Krachi, which started out on paved roads that were a bit rough but not that bad. Our driver Samson did his best to avoid the frequent potholes in the streets as we took in the scenery of villages alongside the road. The last few hours of the drive is on unpaved roads. It's January, which is the hottest month of the year, where temperatures reach over 100 degrees Fahrenheit. Because the vegetation is so dry, brush fires are common. We arrive in the town of Dembai and wait for the arrival of the ferry. At this narrow part of the lake, it's about a 20-minute ride to the other side, and then we'll drive for another hour and a half to finally reach the town of Keti Krachi. This is a typical fishing village in Keti Krachi along Lake Volta, where there is no electricity or running water. The lake, which is just beyond these huts, is barely visible because it's just after dawn. Lake Volta reaches depths up to 75 meters, or about 246 feet. It covers what was once part of Ghana's rainforest, so tree trunks are sometimes visible from the water's surface. During the rescue mission, we often saw traffic boys working on the lake. Here are 3 young boys working alone without the fishermen, which is often the case. The boys, some as young as 4 years old, start working as early as 4 in the morning when it's still dark outside. They work 14 hours a day, 7 days a week, and receive only 1 small meal a day, which is sometimes withheld as punishment. The canoes are quite large for these young boys to handle, and you can see how thin their bodies are. This boy named Kojo lost his left eye after diving under the water to untangle a fishing net, and he swam into a tree branch. This underscores the real dangers these children face every day while fishing. The boys sometimes have to sleep outside when fishing on different islands on Lake Volta, so their legs often have scars from bug bites. This trafficked boy bears a scar from being hit on the head with a canoe oar, a common sign of the abuse these children endure. This young boy named Andrews slipped and fell on the side of the canoe. His master failed to seek medical attention, but instead offered Andrews pain medication similar to acetaminophen. According to Andrews, as he healed, his spine started bending, making it difficult to stand straight. Despite his physical challenges, Andrews had to resume fishing after a month. He can't stand upright for more than 2 minutes, and he experiences pain and numbness in his legs and feet, in addition to pain in his back. After Andrews was rescued, he was diagnosed with spinal tuberculosis. He is currently on medication and will most likely need surgery to correct the curvature of his spine. It's 4:30 in the morning, and many traffic boys start their workday in the pre-dawn hours when it's still dark outside. While Ghana is a few degrees north of the equator, it's still quite cool in the morning. Shortly after dawn, we came across a fisherman and a young boy working on the lake. Eric has climbed into the canoe to talk to the fisherman. Since he's never met him before, Eric introduces himself and tries to gather information about the trafficked boy. Eric finds out the boy is 10 years old and his name is Kojo. He's the only boy working for the fisherman, although in some cases a fisherman may own more than 1 canoe and have several boys working for him. Kojo frequently dives underwater since the fishing net is often caught on something. Eric puts his hand in the water and says, "It's very, very cold." The fisherman tugs gently on the fishing net to see if it's untangled. Eventually, it becomes free and he starts pulling it up. Kojo remains underwater as he continues to free the net. On this particular dive, he stays underwater for 40 seconds. Eric, meanwhile, continues to talk to the fisherman to develop a relationship. Finally, Kojo resurfaces from the freezing water and pulls himself into the boat. He continues to shiver as he faces Eric so they can talk. Eric talks to Kojo to try and find out where he's from. The boys are often too afraid to talk to Eric, even when the fisherman is not present, for fear of being beaten afterwards. At one point, Eric removes his life vest to give to Kojo because he's so cold. Kojo tries to answer Eric's questions and watches Eric stops the fisherman when he tries to speak for Kojo. At times, Kojo finds it difficult to speak because he's shivering so much. Eric hands the life vest to Kojo and helps him put it on in hopes of providing some warmth. He continues to talk to Kojo to find out as much information as he can about the boy as the sun continues to rise above the horizon. Kojo's body is overdeveloped from the intense physical labor that any adult would find challenging. The strenuous labor creates microfractures, which weaken bones, making them more susceptible to fracture or breakage. This often painful condition impedes bone growth, so these boys won't reach their normal height, even if they are rescued. This is a social contract that a fisherman signs when releasing a child. It states that he agrees to release at least one child, and he will eventually release all other children under his custody. He also can never traffic children again. If he does not abide by these terms, he could face legal consequences since the Ghana government passed a law in 2005 against child trafficking. This particular contract documented the release of a 7-year-old girl named Peace, who was the youngest of the 3 girls rescued on this mission. Eric successfully negotiates Kojo's release later that day. However, Kojo really doesn't fully comprehend his imminent freedom because usually the negotiations take place over numerous meetings over a period of months or even years. Kojo is to some degree in a state of shock and doesn't truly understand he's going to be free. Kojo looks on as the fisherman signs his contract, and Eric restates his commitment to assist the fisherman so he can continue to fish or learn another trade such as farming or carpentry without using child labor. Gloria, shown here with my daughter Claire and the village chief, was trafficked when she was only 8 years old, but was rescued 5 years later in 2006. I had the opportunity to talk with her mother Stella, who was joined by her husband and granddaughter. Since the average Ghanaian family makes about $3 a day, poverty and hopes of giving their child a better life are common reasons why parents give their child to a fisherman. Stella said she sold Gloria to a fisherman for the equivalent of $50 US because the fisherman said he would send Gloria to school for 3 years and she could help around the house and cook. Gloria said she was beaten for doing the smallest thing wrong, wasn't fed well, and never went to school. Gloria's house is located in the central region, which is where many children are trafficked from. This is her room, which she shares with her 2 sisters, Perpetual and Comfort. There is one window, and the doorway where I'm standing is covered with a piece of cloth. The 3 girls sleep on the cement floor on top of a thin mat. As you can see, there are no furnishings and very few personal belongings. This fisherman works with his son, who is wearing the green shirt, followed by 2 child laborers, Patrick, who is 14 years old, and little Celasi, who is only 5. The boys are carrying their equipment to the lake to work. It's ironic that Celasi is the youngest and smallest, yet he carries the heaviest load. Patrick is responsible for pulling up the fishing net, while Celasi, like most boys his age, usually bails water, but sometimes he has to pull up the nets too. As the fishing net is pulled up, I can't help but notice there's no fish in it. So these boys are working so hard and not going to school, yet their efforts bring little results. When the net becomes tangled on something, most likely a tree stump, Patrick must dive below to untangle it. Boys sometimes have to dive up to 20 feet below the surface to untangle the nets. Some have drowned when they become entangled in the nets and are unable to free themselves. In the background, you can see young boys on other fishing boats pass by. Eric negotiates with the fishermen to release Patrick and Celasi. He asks the fisherman if these are all his children, and the fisherman says the boy in the green shirt is his son. Eric asks the fisherman to give him all of the boys, including his son, so they can all go to school. The fisherman says he can't give them all up because then his business will collapse, but if Eric will help him somehow so his business won't suffer, he'll consider releasing the boys.
If you are collecting the boys,
I want you to let your own boy to.
Eric asks the fisherman to let his son come stay with him in Accra, where he can go to school, and to let Patrick and Celasi go. In return, Eric says he will help him build a fish pond, which will be a good business, instead of using children. Eric suggests he attend the village meeting called a Durbar, and to think about his offer, and Eric will come back to see him again in the afternoon. Eric tells the fisherman to not be afraid of releasing the boys, because he can do the work alone.
I'll come again. Then we talk. But don't be afraid. You can do the work alone. It's as that you can do to help this.
Eric must establish a relationship with the village chiefs before he can meet and persuade fishermen from that village to release child laborers. The chiefs have influence over the villagers, and Eric must gain the chiefs' respect and trust before he can have any credibility with the fishermen. Here Eric is talking to a village chief, and he's asking him what the chief can do to help reduce child trafficking. The chief responds by saying education is the key to effect change. You can't use force to change something. Eric asks why not? Why not bring in the police and arrest everyone? The chief says no, because then the fishermen will run away and then you'll end up having to chase them.
Can you be chasing them?
And this is the noisy baby lamb heard during Eric's meeting with the village chief. After Eric talks to the chief, the Durbar begins with some music and dancing. Eric then talks to the villagers through an interpreter, and he explains how bad child trafficking is. At every Durbar, Eric writes down the message, "Let the fishing children go," and then he writes down today's date, January 21st, 2008.
Let the fishing children go.
Eric repeats the message, "Let the fishing children go," so they have a chance to go to school.
So when it's not for
Eric was successful in negotiating the release of Patrick and Celasi. Here he reads the social contract to the fishermen and explains that by releasing the boys today, he agrees to no longer traffic children. If he does, he can be prosecuted. So this truly stops child trafficking at its root cause. The fisherman is not paid any money to do this, but he will receive assistance in the form of a microcredit for new fishing equipment and/or services such as joining a cooperative program with other fishermen. Since most fishermen are illiterate, their signature is represented by their thumbprint. Eric and the fishermen walk Patrick and Celasi to the rescue boat. It's so good to finally see the boys smiling as they realize they are finally free. The boys' release is voluntary and amicable, underscoring the success of the negotiation process and the relationship and trust Eric has with the fishermen and the villagers. This is why his program works and has lasting successful results. The fisherman, holding on to the social contract, waves back. After the rescue mission, we take the ferry back to the town of Dembai. Samson keeps a protective eye on Patrick and Celasi, who both wave to us from the main deck. From the upper deck of the ferry, I watch the beautiful sunset, but the view is bittersweet as I see a boat filled with working boys pass by. The 20-minute ride passes quickly, and we arrive in Dembai for the 7-hour drive to Accra to bring the children to the rehabilitation center. When we arrive at the rehabilitation center, it's about 1 in the morning, and the children are eating a hot meal prepared by the staff. The children will stay here for 3.5 months, where they'll receive medical care and counseling before they're reunited with their families. After leaving the rehabilitation center, a child is reunited with their family and their progress is monitored for 2.5 years to make sure they are successfully reintegrated into their communities. A rescue child can also be sponsored for $20 a month. Here we're playing a little game of follow the leader with some of the younger boys while the older boys play soccer. It's hard to believe that just the other day, all these boys were working on fishing boats.
This is my room.
Patrick, who is 14 years old, proudly shows me his room at the rehabilitation center.
And where do you sleep?
This is my bed.
Oh, this is your bed? Oh, that's very nice.
When I asked Patrick how the fishermen treated him, he said he was treated badly. He said one time I was sick on the lake, and another fisherman told my master to give me medicine. My master got angry at me for complaining, so he beat me with a stick, and I got a scar on my arm. Patrick holds up his arm to show a scar about 3 inches long across his forearm. Patrick also said he once worked with another boy about his age named Kwame, who drowned after becoming tangled in the fishing net. After spending 3.5 months at the rehabilitation center, the rescued children are returned to their families, where they'll attend a school similar to this one. Since there's no electricity, the windows and doors on both sides of the building serve as the only sources of light. Here's a typical classroom where the enthusiastic students sit 3 to a desk. There must be at least 80 students in this one crowded classroom. You can see an English grammar test written on the chalkboard, and here's the teacher who's responsible for all these students and who graciously allowed me to visit his class. 2 years later, I came to visit Patrick at his school. Here he is riding the new bicycle his sponsor bought him, so he no longer has a long walk to school. His teacher also says since returning to school after he was rescued, Patrick has improved from average to an above-average student, and he was elected prefect of his school.
Okay. Your teacher says that you are doing very well.
Yes.
And you are ahead.
Yes.
Yes. So what is your favorite subject in school?
Math.
Math?
Yes.
You like math the best?
Yes.
What is your least favorite subject?
Ewe.
Oh, you don't like learning Ewe? Do you like English?
Yes.
You speak English very well.
Yes.
What do you want to be when you grow up?
I want to be a doctor.
A doctor?
Yes.
You know what you told me 2 years ago when I asked you that question? Do you remember?
Yes.
What did you say?
I want to be a footballer.
Yes, you told me you want to be a football player.
As for Andrews, who had the curved spine, he was able to have corrective surgery thanks to the doctors at the Focus Foundation. He's now recovering well and undergoing physical therapy. These are just a few of the precious children that were saved during the rescue mission, including Kojo, who you will remember was diving in the frigid waters of Lake Volta. Now that they are free, they can laugh and play like normal children and have a brighter future thanks to the successful efforts of Eric Piazza and Right to be Free. With your support, one day, all fishermen like this one will work on Lake Volta without using child labor.
What I try to do back home in Africa, in Ghana. Beside that one too, there's another program in Somalia where girls are trafficked to Yemen and Saudi Arabia for sexual exploitation. They traffic them under the pretense that they are taking them to Yemen or Saudi Arabia to work as house helps. So what I've been trying to do is that since 2011, we've been trying to support the government, build their capacity to understand the problem and then rescue them. Just to summarize the whole thing is that human trafficking is real. It can happen to any of us, it can happen to anybody. It doesn't matter your level of education or your knowledge. All you need to do is that you need to understand the fact that you can be deceived. People can be deceived, people can be exploited, people can be adapted into this issue. These children, some of their parents just sell them for $8, $10, $20, $50 for these fishermen. Some of these girls in Somalia, what happened is that the fishermen come and tell them, the ladies come and tell their parents that you are here, you don't have a job. There's a job for your child, your daughter in Yemen as a house help. She'll earn X amount of money, a lot of money. So let him go and work. They get there, these women will give them some middlemen. The middlemen will place them in the house or place them in the brothel, and then they use them. And because they are Muslims, once they abuse them, they can't come back home again. Even when they come to their country, they can still not go back to their community because they've been exploited. So I would just want to pause here. And then if you have any, I know some people have questions, clarifications, then you can ask. That can help you to clarify a lot of issues. Thank you.
We do have time for a couple questions, and so if you have a question, please raise your hand. We'll get a microphone to you. Kathleen? Rob?
Hi, my name is Kathleen. I'm a Clinton School student. Thank you so much for coming. My question relates to the alternative economics program you also have for the fishermen or whoever you take the trafficked children from. How does that program work? What kind of alternative livelihoods do you help them with, and what have you found is the most successful alternative livelihood that people can take on easily with minimal help to mitigate further trafficking?
Okay, thank you. I think one of the main one that is helpful is the issue of aquafishing or fish pond. Most of the fishermen use children because they want cheap labor. There are adults that they can engage and pay them, but they can't afford. So what we do is that we try to put them into cooperatives, a group of 10, and then we'll help them create one fish pond inside the lake, which they can move. They feed the fish, they give them whatever it is, and then it's like a grant, a loan. You work with it for a year, and then whatever you get from the fish, they sell them, and then they do another fish pond for the second person among themselves. So that's what we do, we help them to do. That's one aspect. Some of them too prefer outboard motor, the one they attach to their canoe. So what we do, we buy them one, and there are 5 of them, they work with it. Then they buy one for the other person and keep on going, so they will not use children. And once we give you this grant or this loan in a group, then you monitor you that you don't use any child in working. Thank you.
Yes,
ma'am. Eric, what about the other side? You have families that sold the children, presumably because of economic hardship. So what is to prevent them from doing it again?
Yeah, I think that when we rescue a child, you don't take him back to the parents just after rescuing the kid. We take them to a shelter for 3 months. Within the 3 months, what we do is that we do what we call home assessment, economic, political, religious, social assessment of the home, to see whether the condition under which the child was given out was sold out is still prevailing. If it's there, we find out what can we do to reduce the condition. So what we do is that we try to create what we call some microcredit program for the parents. Before we send a child to the parents, you have to support the parent with some grant to start some business. Some of the things we also do is that we try to buy them what they call goat. Goat is some kind of good program that people can use. So we buy a goat, 2 goats for the kids. And the program is that we will take care of the kid in school for 2 years. So you don't have to sell the goat. You don't have to kill the goat. You must let the goat be there for 2 years. And every year, the goat will produce at least 2 times. Some of them will produce 2 or 1. So within 3 years, you may have 6 goats. And that will help you to start something to support the other kids. Rescuing children is good, but trying to find a way to stop the parents from giving their children is the ultimate goal. That's some of the things we do to support the parents.
Hi, thank you for coming. I had the exact same question, but I guess my next question is, you started in Ghana, which makes sense because that's where you're from, and I'm sure you have a connection there with these children fishing, but then it sounds like you've now moved to Somalia and are focusing on the girls. And I guess my question is, how did you choose Somalia as your second point? And obviously this sort of thing is happening in more places than just Ghana and Somalia. So how do you choose where to expand and what work comes next?
Okay, thank you. I've been working in Liberia, in Ivory Coast, in Sudan, and other countries. Somalia, they have a special need there, so I was called to come and help them to do that. I still work in Ghana with these children on Right to be Free. Somalia, because of the war, they have a lot of trafficking going on. But the government didn't want to accept the fact that trafficking is taking place in the country. So I was supposed to go there to help them to identify the fact that human trafficking is an issue, that they need to look at it. So that's why I moved to going to Somalia. So I go there, maybe 3 months, come back, 2 months, come back, and that kind of thing. So I've been working in other countries, like Liberia, for example. They used to traffic children. And let me say this, that most children are brought to America because they have orphanages in Liberia. So what happens is that people who are looking for children go to Liberia to adopt. And these orphanages are orphanages that don't go to the right program, but they give children to adoption. So people adopt them and bring them to Liberia. So sometime, in part, we have to stop adoption in Liberia. It became a whole issue. But it became a business game that people go there, they sell children to them, but all in the name of adoption. And so I work in other countries, not only in Ghana, but my base is in Ghana, where I support these kids. Thank you.
Will you retell that story you told me earlier about why it's important? Yes, you started in a small, Ghanaian population, but why, say, someone who's apathetic and then maybe, well, they're over there, it's not really my problem. Well, why is it something that I should worry about?
You see, I believe that this world is a small place, and if each one of us do what we can do in our small way, we can make a difference in this whole world. I have a simple philosophy that everybody has something that he doesn't need. But there's somebody down beneath your ladder that needs what you don't want. And if you want to try to give what you don't need to what people down us, this world will become a better place. That's my philosophy. For instance, once a while I go to my wife's closet. She has some dress she has not worn it for the past 3 months. You touch it, oh, this one is $50. And so, you don't need it. But this particular one you're wearing every day. So I just collect them and just go and give them out. Because you don't need it. I always say something that people love, that in Africa, the cars, your vehicles that you don't need, is what we take as a new things we have. People come here and buy second-hand cars back home. And to them, it's a new possession, but somebody here, it doesn't need it. So what am I saying? I'm saying that each of us can make a difference. You will think that something doesn't concern you. You are far away. I'm in Africa. What does it concern you? But it concerns all of us. If all of us can make a simple difference in our lives, in our area, in our neighborhood, I tell you, this world will become a better place for all of us to live. It might happen in Ghana, but it may also happen in this area. We did a documentary called Normal Life, and we saw that human trafficking is happening across the world, even in the United States here. It's happening a lot. There might be a linkage between those happening here and those happening in Africa. You have no idea. They might bring kids from Africa to this place. So that's why all of us have to put hands together to say no to human trafficking in this world.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you for the work that you're doing with these children. I'm a therapist who works with children who have been traumatized, so I'm curious with the counseling that you do at your centers, what do you find is the biggest obstacle once you get these kids into a safe place?
How to overcome the trauma they go through. Some of them don't even want to see their parents. Others are bullies because that's all they know. What they know is that the fishermen beat them. So when you bring them to the center, all they know is that when somebody offends me, I have to hit him. I was just sharing with somebody that one thing that we use a lot is what we call play therapy. For instance, most of them are very aggressive. So, and when somebody offends them, they can't forgive, they have to hit the person back. So we use what we call football. We all play soccer. on the turf, and then when somebody kicks somebody, you stop the game. You all sit down on the floor and say, why do you kick him? Why are you attacking him? They use that kind of therapy to help them. So we use a lot of play therapy and then group work to support them. But the 3 months is not enough. It's not enough for them, unless when you go back home, it's very expensive to follow all of them from different parts. But the 3 months in the center, we have social workers and clinical psychologists who work with them for these 3 months.
Andre?
As was mentioned in the documentary, Ghana and other countries have laws already on the books against child slavery. What success have you had in working with these institutional players to enforce the laws that are already on the books?
Yeah, I set up a unit in the police called Anti-Human Trafficking Unit during my work in Ghana. But the problem is that it becomes so difficult for the police themselves to go and arrest these people. Why? 2 reasons. At times, they find it difficult to differentiate who is a trafficked child and who is not. And the fisherman, when you see him the first time, will tell you, it's my child. And most of them don't have birth certificates, so how do you prove it? But when you go behind it, you can get people who can tell you that it's not true. But these same people are not ready to go to court to defend as witness. They won't. So the question is, you can go and arrest them. We did a police raid. We arrested about 32 fishermen and rescued 128 children. We took it to court, but nothing happened. So the question is that we will keep on trying, we won't stop at it. But the fact that we are trying doesn't mean the children should continue suffering there. We need to, first of all, give them hope and rescue them, whilst we keep on trying how the law will work. Unlike even in the US, where you have policemen at various points. In Ghana, for instance, we don't have a lot of policemen. Even when you have a criminal case and you go to court, criminal thing, you go to police station, at times you have to pay for taxi for the policeman to come with you. So such policeman will never risk his life to go on the lake to say, I'm going to rescue traffic. They won't do that. So that's why at times the law doesn't, you have the law, but it doesn't work in some of these areas.
We'll get you in a second.
I'm sorry I was late, but this may have been, but this gentleman's question touched upon my concern, which is everything I've seen here. Is the governments of these areas, the fact that evidently they're very poor is why they don't have more regulation on such things? In other words, they don't have someone like you, similar to you, that will go out and find these children and rescue these children.
Okay. For instance, when I rescue these children, I try to get the government involved. So we even take them to a government shelter. But if you don't provide money to feed them, forget it. They won't. So if you want to rescue children, you must make sure you have money to feed them, to support them, and to place them in school. So there are a lot of needs in Africa, in some of these countries. So when they prioritize their needs, some of these issues are not, though it's good, they care about it, but it's not one of their priorities.
So you use social contracts to actually buy release of these children. In Ghana, it's a Christian country. Liberia is actually also Christian, if I remember correctly. Mm-hmm. You have Ivory Coast. Somalia is clearly Muslim. When you look at the social contracts and how you use them, are there common things that you look for, or are they different because every culture is different? Are there common ways that you can actually structure the social contract that makes it work universally?
I think that you have to use it based on the country and the place you find yourself to work. For example, in Somalia, they are a Muslim country and they believe in handshake. When you have any meeting with a Somali person and you shake his hands, it means that you seal the deal. And they believe in that so much. But somewhere in Ghana, you have to sign something with the person to know that, listen, I said, you will do this, I'll do this. Once we agreed. And the reason for signing social contracts with some of these fishermen is that we want them to know that whatever support you're going to support them in their group form, when they abuse it, you can use that contract against them. That becomes a bit binding between the two of us. And I think most of them, they keep their promise. So far as you're able to help them with the fish pond or with the corporate program we have for them.
You're here and then in the back.
You know, when you're speaking about the problem of families selling their children, one of the things that occurs to me is sometimes that might be structured differently. And in the case of the fishermen, I'm curious as to whether the children are sold to somebody who is trading in children and they serve as a broker, or are the fishermen coming into villages and actually approaching the parents?
Two ways. Some of the people who take the children at times even are relatives of the children. For instance, they come, the whole issue started some years back, some decades back, when children finish what they call middle school in Ghana, and then their uncles would take them to the lakeside to help them in fishing, which was okay, around 15, 16, to help them in fishing. And some of them actually become apprentices in the area. But after some time, they realized that these boys who have finished middle school begin to rebel. They don't want to fish, they want to do something else. So they begin to rebel against these uncles and cars, whatever it is. So later on, some of them start coming for kids around 10, 8. And when they take this kids along, the kids are so responsible, they don't rebel, they do whatever they ask them to do. So they realize that it's better to use these children than using these boys. So then people start changing. Then from there, they start coming to their sisters and siblings and say, listen, your son is here doing nothing. I can take him to the lakeside, help me, I'll take him to go to school, and I'll support him. And every month, or every quarter, I'll remit you this amount of money. That's how it began. And now people from other communities will come to different communities and recruit them. So we have middlemen who does the recruitment, and we have fishermen who also come to their communities and do that. There's even other aspects where people go to the villages, and then they recruit girls to become house helps in Accra, in the cities. So they come and say, like, they go to the villages to buy foodstuffs to bring to the cities. When they get there, some women in the village will tell them, oh, I have my daughter here, he needs some work in the cities. Okay, I'll take him. So they'll go to the villages and collect about 10 or 20 girls. They come to the cities, they give them one to you, one to this place, one, and then go around. At the end of the month, they come and tell her, listen, give me the salary for these people because their mother said I should collect the money and bring it to them. They collect all the salaries or the wages for these people. They give their mothers only token and they keep the rest. That's also going on. So these are some of the things that's taking place under exploitation and human trafficking.
Yes, sir.
These kids grow up, and when they get older, do they also become fishermen? If they become fishermen, how do they get their boats? Is there some area above the fishermen that the fishermen do work for themselves, or do they work for somebody else? And what is being done to teach fishermen how to catch fish better? I didn't see anybody catching any fish up there.
You see, one of the challenges on the lake is that they use a lot of unapproved ways of fishing. They use these small nets. Some of them use bamboo. Others use all kinds of things to fish. Some of the kids grow up to become fishermen. But at the end of the day, they also end up going back to take young boys and use them because they themselves were used. Others along the line rebel against the fishermen and leave. And when they go to the communities, they become deviants in the society, in their communities, because they don't like the fishing, they have no skills, and they are angry against society. So they become deviant, they become robbers, pickpockets, stealing around the places. So we believe that it is good for you to catch them young, help them with education, and then support them to find a living, what they want to do before they get to that stage.
Last question, Katie.
Thank you so much. This kind of builds off the last question. Is there a movement in schools or in the villages to teach young boys and girls even that will later to not bring in child laborers either in their households in Accra or as fishermen later on in life?
We try to form what's called these trafficking clubs in the school, but it's not easy, and it's not easy to do that. It's not easy. It's supposed to be something that can go smoothly, but it doesn't, because some of these kids, when they come back to their community of origin and you put them to school, we train them how to say no to their parents, and then that I will not go to the fishing, or they will also have to talk to other people in their communities about it, that is what I went through. And you see, some of the parents themselves don't even know what the children go through until we bring them back. They are not even aware what the children go through. So when we need to tell them what their child was doing, some of them weeps, but it's too late. But some of them too, and one of the reasons also people give their children out, economic is one, but the other aspect is about large family size, and then single parenthood. Most of the mothers of some of these kids are single parents, and because the men are not there.
Eric, thank you so much for visiting the Clinton School. Thank you all for coming out, and we will see you at the next one.
Thank you.